Alright everyone, it's time for Occult Literature, video 199. Occultism, 2 lectures by Claude, actually. He's a rationalist, so it's from that skeptic perspective. Link in the description of my edition of this work on Amazon, second and third links to my books blogs. If you like sort of the cautionary rationalism, which I've been releasing a little bit lately, I do have other works there. Most of them are under folklore. This one goes under the academic heading, because it's more strictly academic. This is an interesting work. It was delivered in the form of oratory. That is actual physical lectures that were then transcribed for the purposes of making a booklet from them. And essentially, the author's intent is to discredit the occult. He doesn't quite manage to do that, and as I point out in the foreword, the occult is more vast than the handful of anecdotes and phenomena that he himself is exploring. The fact that phrenology, which he mentions, or dowsing have fallen out of favor and been largely discredited, or the fact that there have been people that held seances that were exposed as charlatans, did indeed destroy the spiritualist movement by and large by the end of the 1920s. This comes in the latter stage, the early death throes, really, of spiritualism. By the 30s, it's basically died out entirely. It gets a revival in the 60s a little bit, and I would say is undergoing a little bit of a revival now. But the new occultism, the occult renaissance we're in right now, is partially an academic study, and by and large has to do with more demonic and dark forces, and also on the other flip side, the like neo-pagan revival, as opposed to spiritualism and love beat sort of gypsy stuff. It's still interesting though, and some of the phenomena, for instance, in World War I, there were tales at different points of angels entering the battlefield, and basically helping ward off German troops. The British circulated these stories. I think the French did too. And this is covered in here. And actually, you get the initial report, which was meant as a joke. Like, literally, the first report of it was from basically a satire magazine at the time. It got seized upon, it sounded good, and it got amplified by people who then said, well, yeah, I was in the battle, yeah, there were angels there. Yeah, we found, like, dead Germans with arrows stuck in them and stuff. And, of course, these things never happened. They were based on a primary report that wasn't true, but it lifted people's spirits at the time, so the government didn't really step in and discredit it for a while. Oh, people want to believe angels are on our side. I don't see the problem here. We could probably use some heavenly help. He speaks of phrenology. Phrenology is largely discredited. It has a little bit of an overlap with science. There is some study into it ongoing, but not really. Like, most of the claims that it made, you can discredit. And dowsing. I still know people today that think that dowsing works. I'm like, okay, yeah, show me where the gold is. And it's like, you know, it's harmless. It's a cute parlor trick or something. Yeah, maybe you can detect certain electromagnetic fluxes or something like that, but that doesn't mean it's going to help you find gold. And it's certain. I've had people say, well, yeah, I did dowsing in my home and I locked off the electromagnetic vortices and it cured my cancer and stuff like that. I'm like, that's wishful thinking, but at least it's wishful. So, you know, fucking I don't even care. At this point, being more of a skeptic myself on many of these counts, I just sort of, I don't even care enough to debunk, but that's what Claude was trying to do. As far as spiritualism, though, goes, it is basically a dead practice. And people like Claude definitely had a hand in it. So he's trying to discredit these things, but inadvertently at the same time he's providing an interesting compilation of this material, basically interesting things, phenomena that were documented by occultists through time. Again, phrenology, dowsing, and so forth, angels on battlefields, and talking to the dead. And so, like with some of these folkloric works, you're saying, well, these are gross, this is a list of gross superstitions about omens and good luck. Yeah, but you're listing them, you're keeping them for posterity. Some of them were very localized. If signs and omens hadn't been written at the time, some of those would have been forgotten, because oral history has begun to break down even inter-family oral history. So it's really great. It's a good work, this one, actually. Even though it's fairly short, 66 pages, so it's middling in length. You got to understand that even longer works, like the initial file was 85. That would be considerably longer. When you compress it to a modern format, typically works prior to the 30s, but after the mid-1800s. Before that, it's like, oh my god, it's like one of their pages is 2 of ours. They start spacing things out a lot more, especially from 1890s to the 1920s. So again, link in the description of my edition of this work on Amazon. Second and third links are to my books blogs. There are other works available from sort of that skeptic perspective. That's about all. Peace out.